Hello, viewers and podcast listeners. I'm your host, Miles, and you're tuning in at XRaised, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. Today, we've invited an expert who sits right at the intersection of digital transformation, user experience, and compliance, three pillars that are reshaping the online world. If you're in the digital space, you know how critical it is to create content that not only engages but also complies with industry regulations. Our guest has been the driving force behind groundbreaking digital strategies for nonprofits and global ad agencies, and of course, leading Makeni Bent Digital Consulting. So I hope you guys are ready as I am because this conversation is going to be packed with insights from the founder of Makeni Bent Digital Consulting, Abdul Fattah Ismail. Hello, Abdul. How are you?
Hello, Miles. How you doing?
Well, thank you so much. It's great to have you here at X-Ray so we can touch on how Makeni Bent Digital Consulting is bridging the gap in user experience and how businesses can leverage AI-driven marketing and digital strategy to stay ahead. So
Yes.
let's get this started with your career, Abdul, which has been deeply rooted in digital transformation, user experience, and compliance. So what was the catalyst that inspired you to launch Makeni Bent Digital Consulting, and what industry gap were you determined to close?
Yeah. So I think over the years, what I noticed as a content professional is that working mostly with regulated industries and also some creative shops, small and large, is that there's been a lack of, you know, delivery. There's been a lack of delivery within, the regulated sectors for content space. And I feel like too, because the lack of delivery I've seen to even begin was accessibility, where I think you see specific industries like the pharmaceutical and the healthcare industry, for example, have not really been able to keep up with the emerging digital trends, which we will convey later. But specifically with pharmacy, I noticed accessibility is a multi-trillion dollar marketplace of disabled audiences that the industry is unable to review, analyze, and provide information that they need, especially because they're suffering from several diseases ranging from, you know, eyesight, voice, eyes, and there's several disabilities that the pharmaceutical sector, specifically the healthcare center, are able to see. And I think that's kind of what inspired me too, in order to maintain compliance with Makeni Bent Digital Consulting, because I think over my 19 years of experience as a content professional, is like we have way more information than we're able to organize and structure. And I feel it's good too because the information is so unstructured with synthetic implementations that we need to protect it to provide the people who need the right information at the right time. And that's what inspired me to start Makeni Bent Digital Consulting over the years. It's like, hey, just find other team members who are able to deliver personalized information, but at the same time, balance ethics and integrity, especially in North America, which is another thing I noticed is that I just read this short article from CMS Wire that 29% of organizations have not implemented a framework for AI governance. And I said, not great. So I think that's another
Mhm.
gap to transition where I want to cover is basically find other data analysts, UX researchers, and web developers who are looking to implement basically strategies that will protect, the compliance for organizations and businesses, and also deliver the most personalized, intuitive experiences.
Well, a lag in user experience and compliance, as you said, it seems very necessary, but often frustrating, especially in industries that need to address accessibility and ethics. But it's good that you're bridging the gap, Abdul, making sure businesses stay compliant without slowing down innovation. And you've worked with nonprofits and major agencies, and I read one of your standout achievements was driving a 90% engagement increase for Sisters in Service. So, could you please walk us through a case study where your strategies turned the tide for a client?
Yes, I think what really started with the generative AI implementation, it actually started before generative AI implementation for the 90%, because I think the initial claim was that the nonprofit startup was a new organization to provide mental health services, subject matter experts.
Mm-hmm.
and also other medical professionals and caregivers. And I think what even inspired before that was there was a specific case study where we instituted. Here, I'm going to basically narrate the story in the STAR method, where the situation was an engagement lead at one of my former employers, McCann Health. He asked me, the engagement team and himself specifically asked me, a project manager, a brand copywriter, and a scientific strategist lead for this specific client, Mirum Pharmaceuticals, where we were asked to develop a mobile app for
Uh-huh.
children who are from newborn to 5, 6 years old that are suffering from a rare skin disorder called Alagille syndrome. And
Mm-hmm.
to develop this ad where I was tasked to, as a content strategist, my specific role where I was asked to write URL metadata for content elements as we were designing the app across the team members. So as I wrote the URLs for metadata, then I was also asked to design the content models for the app pages that will be implemented with other contributors that I'll explain later on.
Yeah.
I was able to fulfill my role as a content strategist, where it's kind of like a mix of design, copy within. So that's why we're so blended sometimes that I think, you know, employers and hiring managers, they sometimes they forget the value when it's like we're asked to do so versatile in that sense, which is the best thing about it, being so versatile, so dynamic, where you learn over the years through technique and
Mm-hmm.
uh, behavioral degree of focus to understand the role of every other collaborator to design and develop the experience. I think to even carry on back to the development of this mobile app is like after a 2 to 3 week span where the copy was asked to write the in-app notifications, the project manager, you know, scheduled weekly, daily check-ins, whether it's through a Teams check-in or through a 10-minute progress section to see the development of the app in a sprint. And then I think the scientific lead was maybe able to implement the information safety ISI, actually is the best way to say yes, the ISI and any other regulations that would be implemented into the mobile app when it does become complete. And after a 2 week period is when we were able to review the app in Zyflow to kind of make sure that the ISI and all the other regulations were going to be checked because there's going to be another dimension of interviews between the MLR, which is the Medical Legal Review Committee, and also the Promotional Review Committee. So through the stages of committees between MLR, PRC, and then the client, Mirum Pharmaceuticals, when these 3 stages of review were completed, then we were able to interact then with the development and also the creative team who were going to design the app after the prototype was already developed after a 3 to 4 week period. And I think then after the developers and the creative team were able to build out the app is named ISCheck. And the app is now on noclassicdisease.com. So if you go to noclassicdisease.com, where the app is no longer on the website, but at that time, about 3 years ago, the app was loaded onto the website. And then once it was loaded on the website, then downloaders who were caregivers and medical professors who
Mm-hmm.
were collaboration to see how the caregivers were able to track the disease progression. They downloaded the app to about a 35-40% increase, again, because it didn't exist before.
Yeah.
So it's very unique in that sense for a rare skin disease for childhoods to be downloaded and managed, which improved the relationships between the caregivers, nurses, and other pediatricians who were able to at least understand the progression of the rare disease and how to provide disease education and treatment. Because I believe it could be different now where I haven't kept up with maybe there are prescription drugs to manage the disease, but at that moment, it was really about managing the disorder for the medical professionals to provide education to the patient and also the caregiver, which is the parent and
Mm-hmm.
the
Right.
disease caregiver, right?
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that impact. It truly matters. You're right. Understanding the role of everyone and ensuring, of course, data safety are highly critical. Now, Abdul, let's talk about AI that has been, rewriting the rule book on digital marketing. How is Makeni Bent Digital Consulting leveraging AI and machine learning to optimize content, engagement, and business growth?
Yeah, I think what Makeni Bent is going to be doing, I think to mention the 90% engagement rate with system service, it began by developing a framework plan for social media strategy over a 30-day period where
Mm-hmm.
we were able to engage in predictive analysis within a 30-month, not 30 months, 30-day period, excuse me, to see, okay, well, um, who are going to be responding on social media applications? Is it going to be Idealist,
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, um, X, Twitter, or Facebook? So we want to do a predictive analysis method using an AI tool to see, okay, well, maybe if we install blog posts in Facebook, perhaps we will get a higher response rate. And we're able to decide, okay, well, if we add in maybe 2, 3 blog posts a week to kind of test the response rate, analyze, and then maybe increase another outreach within idealists who are more visually responsive, where I'll just also collaborate to design an infographic that lists the products and services that sister service with the pride at that moment, which did get some downloads as well. But I think there was another stronger tactic we utilized that could be discussed forward. But I think that's when we were able to use these AI ML tactics to predict user behavior and personalize content to meet them in the right social media platform. And yeah, I think at that time, we got a lot of response from Facebook posting and also Twitter X, where we will just kind of showcase basic information that Sisters of Service will provide for mental health care, where it also involved program developments within the northern New Jersey region of Englewood, New Jersey, and Bergen County, where the Facebook community was basically understand, okay, this is the level of need a hotline, or do you need maybe some medical services, Medicaid, Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really how we're able to utilize this AI ML tactics in order to provide brand outreach, business growth with systems of service where they didn't exist at the time, but at that same level, we're able to promote the service from a regional perspective, a New York City perspective, and also discover how we were able to design the wireframe for, I think is utilized where I think maybe getting onto another discussion later in the chat is like, I think this point too, where we're able to maybe install some more chatbots to personalize user experiences. And I see that as an opportunity that could be discussing later. But I think at that moment, if you develop a personalized chatbot for user experiences, were you able to kind of improve trust and empathy
Right.
between the customer and the business? And I think now there's definitely some models that can be developed from a basically from a customer segmentation standpoint. We do customer segmentation and create the models and implement them through. We're able to understand user behavior at a higher level and provide the most personalized service.
Mm-hmm. Wow, sounds cool. It's now handling social media, Abdul, specifically predictive analytics using AI, as you said, testing the response rate and user behavior too. And you're right, customization is really has a really big impact to the audience. And I think we've basically reached the point where robots can do marketing in general. But with your
Yes.
expertise in SEO and content strategy, Abdul, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes businesses make in their digital presence, and how do you help them course correct?
Oh, okay. I think for them to course correct is basically, I think even again back into the content strategy days, with a specific title, I think we noticed too that I think regulated industries, one recent example was I think did work in tandem with a Chicago-based ad agency, and we were looking for a state government, basically a state government department for insurance, where they had a static user experience that really lacked basically maneuverability between the
Mhm.
desktop and the mobile, where basically if you were trying to navigate through the mobile experience where you had to really like press it and twirl around, and I felt okay, that's not healthy. I mean, because I think the UX has to be responsive on the mobile dimension, because now the customer is able to interact in 3 different ways to find location for the right services, the right coverages that mental health
Mhm.
patients were needing at that moment. So that was something that did come up into discussion at the time. And I think between myself and the UX researcher, where we were able to kind of do an audit for the landing page because it's one of their top traffic landing pages, the mental health parity page. And what we were looking to do was basically find ways for it to be optimized, the headline, the messaging, because the jargon was very inaccessible that I think the patients and the researchers and the social workers had also mentioned that the messaging was filled with technical jargon. It wasn't balanced in reflection of the audience. But I think the other thing too was like I think they did were able to just someone. I think also from a technical standpoint, I thought that it loaded very slow. So I think all in all, I think the user experience definitely need some redevelopment and revamping, and it will be interesting to see how they're able to personalize their user experiences for audiences who really need to understand the the coverage that the state of Illinois citizens receive, and then also look how to streamline the operation and personalize it. And I think there's definitely opportunity within. That's one business mistake. And then I think too a little bit where I discussed about how the pharmaceutical industry is really unable to implement accessibility within user experiences across platforms. I
Mm-hmm.
think also I think it does go into I think the inefficient content strategy and the brand messaging, which I highlight a little bit. Those are the two things that I've noticed have been a challenges that business have either maybe issued with I think compliance methodology that I'm looking to implement across them is like, hey, if we're able to basically issue compliance strategies and tactics, and then we're able to discuss for example, GDPR is European regulations, and then HIPAA is medical regulations. And I think once we're able to kind of, we'll discuss more later, but I think once we're able to understand the compliance risk and basically manage in a more thorough perspective how we're able to weigh them for social media, data privacy regulation, and analytics measurement. So there's definitely some opportunity gaps where if businesses look to personalize their experiences, we need to be able to understand the compliance methods are able to access within, federal regulations.
Mm-hmm. Right. What you mentioned, I think, is the classic set it and forget it approach, which is, I must say, terrible for digital strategy. It's important to really resonate with the audience. And this could be through personalization and improve and optimize user experience, as you said. And good thing you're out here setting the record straight. So, looking ahead, Abdul, what major trends do you see shaping the future of UX, AI driven marketing, and digital strategy over the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing is over the next 3 to 5 years, we're gonna get into AI as the backbone mentioned over user experience development, digital strategy, and also marketing as well. I think from a user experience perspective, where I think, the basically now that like there's gonna be more empathy with chatbot development as the chatbot response rate is gonna have a more mature, intuitive language. We're
Mhm.
gonna improve the response rate and the user interaction. Like say if, for example, a patient wants to download an article about a specific drug, or they need to understand if they're eligible to receive discounts or medical benefits for
Mhm.
their prescription. And I think those are some key things for user experience that will be a bigger factor over the next 3 to 5, 7 years. Is that I think as user experience become more personalized and intuitive and humane, and I'm able to assess the audience's need at a more accurate level, you're going to see a growth of that. And I think from a digital strategy standpoint, that's interesting. Is I think there's going to be maybe not a bad thing for developers. I think there's still always going to be need for web developers, over the years because they have better technique and
Mhm.
experience. So I
Mhm.
think, kind of going back to the point is I think there's going to be a lot of no code and low code implementation that I think even some who are not on a level of technical expertise, but are able to implement prompt engineering tactics, they will be able to set their cost code a little bit. But I think from a behavioral standpoint, I think it's also important for non-technical professionals like myself, where I kind of skew between the marketer developer, where I can understand how developers are able to design the API frameworks, but I think just be a midpoint. And also, yes, I could do more from an individual perspective, from a reducing the overhead in a sense, but also I think find other partners who are able to basically deepen the expertise, where there's still an importance of technique to develop APIs at the highest level and also maximize the loading speed and then able to implement dimensions of content that generate the highest user response rate.
Yeah, so no code or low code platforms, they might make really developers nervous. Meanwhile, business leaders are like, wait, maybe I can build my own website. But the important thing here is the techniques are becoming really more efficient and accessible. It's indeed an exciting time for digital transformation, Abdul. And before we let you go, for businesses looking to level up their digital presence, what's the first step they should take, and how can Makeni Bent Digital Consulting be their strategic partner?
Yeah, I think what we could do that, even heading to the road of compliance, that could implement, as mentioned, in designing an accessibility tool and also working within related markets to basically do user testing and surveys to understand audience behavior and analyze it. But I think what I've also created, I think I'm really excited to meet with compliance experts and get more
Mhm.
into the depths of understanding the value of my compliance checklist. Where I think the compliance checklist, I think the first stage is where I'm going to meet with the IT, the compliance, the legal teams, where we're able to kind of design the sprint for developing a product, the product being a website or an application, and understand, okay, what are the regulatory limits, for either GDPR, CC,
Mhm.
CPA, or FINRA. Basically, understand, okay, what are the limits that are enabling for creatives and other tacticians to implement, and then also say within the compliance risk. So I think another thing too is, for example, if we're going to be doing an ad campaign to target audiences, it's like, okay, what are the ad campaign regulations for Facebook ads and Google ads, for example?
Mhm.
Basically, we're able to kind of mirror the compliance risk on both sides for delivering the content. And then we're able to assess, okay, well, this is how we're going to be able to measure it and target it, but then stay within compliance. So I think creating this compliance checklist is an exciting thing too. And as we're able to implement the strategy and then measure the performance, we're able
Mhm.
to kind of monitor, measure. And then I think the important part is it needs to be internally aligned that these are the KPIs we're going to measure, like the time spent on page, like a site loading speed, for example, and also look at the engagement rates. And how are we going to measure the engagement rate? Is it going to be because of a document being downloaded or how long they're going to watch the video? And
Uh-huh.
so once we're able to measure the KPI metrics and we have the full alignment, that could be the challenge, but that's also the most rewarding part is we're all able to move on a united front and then able to complete the sprint at the highest manner. And then I think at the end too is like when we do finish, I think that's important with the compliance checklist that I think I'll learn going forward with other compliance and legal experts is like, how do we develop the response rate in terms of maybe there's any misinformation and bias on our user experiences that we need to basically generate the response rate, see, okay, who are the stakeholders and who are the collaborators, who are the contributors. And that's going to be the final end of the compliance checklist that I'm excited to implement. That for businesses, I think it'll be good to basically we're all able to collaborate, unify, define the guardrails and the roadmaps, and then the stakeholders, the key builders, designers, developers, we're all able to just kind of get into this conference room together, brainstorm the differences, understand the risk management, and execute the highest level. And that's what I'm looking forward to do with Makeni Bent Digital Consulting is find, okay, what do we need here? Do you want to expand the brand? Do you want to maintain compliance? How do
Mhm.
we help? Let's understand the best way to do it together.
Perfect. I'm sure that compliance checklist that you shared would be really helpful, Abdul. We definitely have learned a lot today, like how user experience and compliance go hand in hand and why businesses need to stop neglecting their SEO and engagement strategies. So thank you so much, Abdul, for dropping all this knowledge today. It's a pleasure to
Thank
have
you.
you.
Hey, pleasure to speak with you too, Miles. And I think we'll definitely be in touch.
Yes, please. I would love to. So I'll better keep in touch for sure. Thank you. There you have it, folks. If your digital presence is feeling a little early 2000s, it definitely deserves an upgrade, and Makeni Bent might just be the one to help you bring it into the future. So check out makenibent.com. To everyone tuning in, thanks for watching or listening to our podcast. We'll see you next time for another game-changing conversation like this one with Abdul. This has been your host, Miles. Stay focused and inspired with XRaised.